So I've been seeing a lot of YouTube videos about keeping guppies as beginner fish. So I thought I'd start off with this tank, which I think shows you one of the reasons that I don't really recommend guppies as first fish. All but 2 of the guppies in here were born in one of my fish tanks. They're all not very old, probably under 11 months. You see, this is just males, and they're quite busy, and they're posturing to each other and on the go all the time. And if you were a new fish keeper and got the ever common 10-gallon starter tank, and you placed 2 male guppies and 4 female guppies in that tank, like me, you're going to end up with 6 tanks full of guppies. And for most people that's going to be quite an overwhelming thing. So how do you go about keeping guppies as starter fish? Well, the first thing is, don't think about breeding them. Male guppies are extremely beautiful, and you can buy them anywhere in different colours, and as long as you buy them in odd numbers, you should be fairly okay. I've never had ripped fins because of other male guppies. I have from female guppies. Female guppies will rip the fins of male guppies that chase them too much. And this tank's very busy. They're all on the go, but it's a pretty well balanced tank. It's a 36-gallon. I don't know how many guppies I have in here, to be honest, but there's quite a lot. Now, if I wanted to start off in a 10-gallon, I'd probably buy 5 males. No more than that. It would need to be heavily planted. This actually is not planted enough for my liking. I do hope that these plants will grow a lot more. That's why I put a floated plant in there for them to hide about in. They rest up there and they seem to be left alone. Now, if you decided to buy 3 males and put them in a 5-gallon tank, you can quite obviously see by this how much they're going to bother each other. You know, there's so many fish in here that nobody gets bothered for that much, and there's plenty of little spaces they can go and hide and keep away if they want to. You know, it's I think well done for males. They're quite more on the go up there because they think it's going to be feeding time, and I woke them up early. I really believe that as a beginner fish they can become quite overwhelming very, very quickly. I've had 80 fry in a 10-gallon tank, and I can imagine never having fished before and trying to deal with that problem, because not all local fish shops will take your fish. A lot of them won't take females anyway, they will take the males. But you have to find a good one for that, and my one's terrible, so I wouldn't give any of my fish to them. So you have to know that you've got somewhere to put them, someone to give them to, some place to sell them to, some place to sell them. I keep mine, so I try to breed them so that they don't get overcrowded. Now, my other tank, which I have to be very, very careful that they don't see me, is a mixed sex tank. Now it's quite calm. You'll see instantly the difference between the fish and how they act in this tank to the male tank. So having a well-balanced tank full of males and females is really important if you're going to keep them together. I think I have 4 males in there, and no, I have a lot more males than that. I would say I have 4 or 5 females to every male. So as you see, it's quite a calm tank. The females aren't being chased about. Some of them are very heavily pregnant. Most of these were born in a tank. I think I have 2 very old females in here. But as you see, this is a very calm tank, which is what you need to aim for if you want to keep males and females together. Now, I do have a lot of predators in here that eat the babies. People may say, oh, that's very cruel, babies being eaten, but you know, that's the way it is. The tank's well set out for that. Quite a few of these babies were born in this tank, so some do survive. My biggest predators are skirted tetras. They will eat young guppies up to about 1/4 of an inch. I also have a large angelfish. He eats only the young. Once they get past a day or so old, he won't touch them. And I also have a female Siamese fighting fish. She also only hunts them when they're very young. I'll give them a couple of days and she leaves them alone. But it's quite a calm and peaceful tank, considering it's near feeding time too. Now, I think that sometimes people do seem to start off with tanks that are way too small. The 10-gallon seems to be the most popular one, and I'm not a great fan of a 10-gallon unless you're a breeder. I think that if you're an adult, you can quite easily manage a 35-gallon tank as your first tank, and they're so much easier to care for than the smaller tanks, and you can have a wide variety of different fish in it. But getting back to guppies is beginner fish. No, I don't recommend them unless you're having the same sex fish and you give them plenty of space. If you're going to buy males, buy them in 3s or 5s. Give them plenty of plants. They really do need a lot of plants. And you know, other people might have different opinions, and I'm really sure they do. I'm sure a lot of people manage to keep tons of guppies in the tank and they're happy, and I've done that. I had 80 fry in a 10-gallon tank and they were fine, but now those 80 fry are in a 65-gallon and a 36-gallon. So, you know, if you've got somewhere to put them, fine. Anyway, I just thought I'd sort of say, you know, I've been keeping guppies and breeding them since I was 8 years old, which is a very, 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 very long time. And you know, I was 8 and I started off with a 150-gallon tank and a 120-gallon tank, which my father made for me. He made both of my tanks. And so even a child can look after quite large tanks quite easy. So, and I bred different fish for 10 years for profit, as Michael from Michael's Fishery will say. And I did quite well. And, you know, you don't have to start small when you're starting off in the fish keeping lark. You can get quite a fair sized tank. Yeah, there's no excuse not to find out how to keep a tank. Tons of people on YouTube could give you lots of advice. You know, but there you go. There's most of my babies in there.